Hey, how's it going? How's it going? Yeah, it is I, your boy TJ, and welcome to Open Mic. And Open Mic, we do this every Saturday. Every Saturday we do this. We hang out, and in the evenings. Last week we tried this out in the morning, and we got a lot of messages. A lot of people just saying, "Hey TJ, why don't you do this in the evening, man?" And I thought, well, let's try it out. Let's see how it goes. And if you've never been here before, well, this is actually our first time doing this. But on this channel, we talk anything and everything about around real estate. My name is Taurai Jack, and today we want to talk about negotiation, real estate, negotiation in real estate. And this is actually one of those pressing topics, right? And where we can either get lost in in the transition of talking about negotiating. What is negotiating? How hard do you negotiate? Is negotiating just about to get the cheapy price that you're looking for, and all of those things? So, yeah, in the next hour, it is your turn to be asking questions. So I've got some comments, and out of those comments, you can be asking any questions. Let's center all the questions around real estate, around negotiation. And in the beginning of this conversation here, I'm just going to give you guys some of the tips, snippets of what I think about negotiation, because I've been at it for a while. If you don't know who I am and this is your first time, thank you for joining us. And like I did say, my name is Taurai Jack. If I'm not doing what I'm doing now, I generally am doing property, meaning that I invest, and I do that in the company called M5 Property Addicts. We are in 4 cities: Johannesburg, Pretoria, Cape Town, Durban, and Johannesburg, Cape Town, Pretoria, and Durban. Yes, okay, 4 cities. That's what we do, and we predominantly do 2 things, eh? So we do student accommodation, and we do those things in the coastal lands, and we do that. Also, we do affordable accommodation down here up here in the Johannesburg, or should I say in the inlands, and that's what we do. So I just want to know, you are watching us from wherever you are watching us. Where are you watching us from? Let me know in the comments there. I will know exactly. I can see you, and I can know exactly where you are. So let me know where you are and where you are watching us from. It will be great to hear from you. To be grateful to hear from you. So good morning. Good morning. Where I am in Johannesburg. It is thundering. Yeah, thundering it is. And it's a bit rainy where I am. And actually, electricity went. Yeah, Eskom almost cut us off. So, but otherwise, we are back online and the electricity is here. I'm hoping that we're going to continue without the disruption of the electricity. But yeah, so if I'm not doing property, what else am I doing? I am doing, I write books. So I wrote the book From Bad Debt to Property Mogul in 2 years. That's my recent book that I wrote. And you can literally catch it up on my website, and it's out for free. But let's talk about negotiation, right? Let's talk about negotiation. What is negotiation? And before I jump into the conversation of negotiation, I literally just jumped onto a dictionary, and I was like, what does negotiating mean? And I'm going to refer to my notes here. I've got some notes that I've just, to prepare us for this conversation here. But whilst you're at it, I'm going to make sure that your comments, right? All of your comments that you have put in, I can see them in here. So again, I'm just checking out, where are you watching us from? Where are you watching us from? Okay, cool. So let's jump into it. So the first thing that I wanted us to talk about is that I think there's a lot of connotation around negotiations, and a lot of people actually just don't understand what negotiation is all about. And I think for many reasons, or many times, we think that negotiating is when we go out there to find a property. Let's say it's been the market value of that property, or it's been marketed for let's say 1 million, negotiation means that we are going to be getting it for 600,000-700,000. But negotiation is more than that, and I want to unpack that with you guys today. So as we go along, let me know where you're watching us from, and we can be continuing there. So the first thing, what is negotiating? The first thing that comes to mind is that, I had to go and look up in the dictionary. English is not my first language, and I had to go look into it. A negotiation actually stipulates finding, it says negotiation is finding a way over or through an obstacle or difficult situation. That's what negotiate means, or negotiating. And then it also goes on to say, so that was the first one. And then the second one goes on to say, it is a dialogue between two or more people intended to reach a beneficial outcome over one or more issues. And I wanted to take that one because I thought, I think if we knew what this actually means of negotiation, then it actually does mean that we are able to kind of like zoom in a little bit deeper on what negotiation is, or what we can do with negotiating. It's not just about, I'm giving an example of the 1 million, and I'm saying that, the 1 million rand value is there, but what are the problems that are there? Because if we are going to negotiate, if we're just looking at it from this meaning here, right? Find a way over through an obstacle or a difficult situation. So what's the difficult situation in that? Is it the price? I don't know, and it goes on to say it's a dialogue between two people or more, intended to reach a beneficial outcome. And I want to hang on to the point of beneficial. If it's going to benefit you on the 700 or on the 600 for you to put in an offer, thumbs up, right? But is it going to benefit the other person? Maybe not, right? And the meaning of negotiating is that it has to benefit both people to overcome the issue. So I actually want to zoom in a little bit on here, and I want to jump on to say, look, you can negotiate on a deal without actually having to knock down the other person. You can. And I want to almost kind of like come in and say to you guys, I think negotiating has been oversold to a point where I think a lot of people, and I was in that space as well, a lot of people actually think that you can't negotiate, or I don't have the skill to negotiate, or negotiations is for the pros, or negotiating is for people that have been practicing it and things like that. There's some element in truth in it, but it's not really the truth. The truth is that all of us, we have that skill. All of us. You, everyone's got that skill. So we have that skill where we can actually negotiate. So I want to jump on to this fact that if you're a parent, you are consistently potentially negotiating with your kids. It's just that simple, And I want to bring it to the obvious stuff here, right? And the other thing is that if you've ever dated, or if you're dating, or you're married, then negotiation was the skill. You had to negotiate. There's some stuff that you've just had to negotiate. For some of you, you've been to shops, you have negotiated something. So it's simple things like that, like those ones, that kind of like highlight the fact that we all have the skill of negotiating, if it makes sense, right? Now, as and when we're going around here talking about negotiating, and I'm just going to give in a few examples as I go along, but whilst we're going ahead on it, I want you guys to jump into the comments and ask the questions. So ask questions what relates to you in terms of your negotiation, whether it's been difficult or not, whether you found it easy, or any other scenario that you might have, and then we can jump into it and I'll answer it. And as I go along, I think I want to actually jump onto the fact that I think it is very easy to learn how to negotiate if you think that you don't have it, but everyone has it, right? So we've already defined it. If you go kids, if you're dating, I mean, you've negotiated your way throughout potentially in life without even knowing that you're negotiating. So what are some of the baby steps that you need to be doing for you to be able to negotiate? So intentionally now, we're going to work into the mode of how do you actually start to negotiate, right? And this is potentially we are talking about, you've just gotten through to a property and you want to negotiate, right? And remember, negotiating, it's a dialogue, right? It's a dialogue between two or more people. So in most markets, should I say in most scenarios, if you got an estate agent and you got a seller, so it's a dialogue between you and the seller and the estate agent. So it's a three-way now there, right? And it's intended to reach a beneficial what outcome. And what is that outcome? For you to get the price that you're looking for, right? But it has to be beneficial for all parties involved. And I think this is where we miss it most of the time. So we forget that the estate agent needs to be paid. And we forget that the seller still needs to be getting what he's thinking is the rightful amount on his property. So let's jump into it. How do you actually start to negotiate? And I want to stress out the fact that, and I've got about 6 to 7 points that I want to talk to. And I will stop at each junction so that we can have some open discussion around it. As some of you I see already, saying hellos to us here. So high five to you, Ayanda. Thanks for joining us. Ayanda Mazibuku, thank you very much for joining us. And Queen Beza watching from Boxbeck. Hey, I like Boxbeck. So many deals there in that area. Dula, and then who else is there? Okay, good. So let's jump on. The first thing that you need to be doing, right? So this is not like a class, it's a discussion. The whole idea of us having the open mic is that you can ask the question, right, as we go along. So the first thing that you need to be doing, or we need to be recognized when we are actually trying or wanting to engage in a discussion of negotiating, is that it is extremely, extremely important that you build rapport. What does that mean by building rapport? Sometimes it's difficult to get through into someone else, right? And there might just be a closed book. You get some of those people that are like superly closed books. I got friends like that. You like trying to build a rapport and like, hey, how's it going? Fine. Are you all right? Yes. How's your missus? Fine. And so it's pretty difficult to build in a rapport to such kind of a person. But the first thing that you need to be doing is to build rapport. How do you build that rapport? Very simple. Very, very simple. Let's assume you have just driven to the property that you are wanting to buy, right? And I use this all the time. And I get out of my car and I quickly say, hey, how's it going? Am I parked at the right place, right? So you're asking you're putting them in a position of authority and you're being in a submissive position to say, I don't want to park in the wrong space. So did I park at the right place? And what will happen there? Oh, yes, it is the right place. And then you go on to say, thank you very much. And thank you very much for having me to come and buy your house, right? Already you have now turned the tables where you are now in the power drive, because in your power drive, you have now actually told them that you are there not to mess around, you are there to be buying their house, isn't it? Right? So you are on a mission. That's what you're on. And that's how you have just picked up rapport. And obviously the next thing that you're going to be talking about now is simple things like the weather, simple things like the animals that they keep on the property, simple things like their garden is impressive, right? So you want to talk about them because you want to build rapport with them, right? So it means that your rapport building is impress. Hey, you're looking wonderful, but don't jump on to talk about they're looking hot, because now it might looks like you are hitting on them, right? So this is rapport building, not hitting conversations, isn't it? Right. So building rapport, there you are, you've arrived, you've put them in the position of power, you've taken back that position again, and you've told them you're there to be buying that house, and it has opened up the conversation, right? And if it is an estate agent, for me, I generally want to have a side conversation with my estate agent, so that by the time we actually get to the property, and if it was for the first time, we're not kind of like still sussing each other out, like, are you for real? No, you like there, you like having the conversation already. And they already know you, that you're a serious person and you're there for a business. So in other words, they are on your side. But remember, an estate agent is never working for you. They generally are working for the seller. So for that reason, rapport, you need to be building with the estate agent. You need to be building rapport with the owner of the property as well. Now, I generally want to work with the same estate agent from time to time. Why do I do that? It's because the more they know me, I don't now need to be building rapport all the time with them. We have already built the rapport over we're now building the relationship, not the rapport. And over and above that, I am not working in overtime when I'm at the property, okay? Because building a rapport with two people at the same time, sometimes it can be difficult, because you want to impress both of them, but we all know you can't sit on two chairs at the same time, isn't it? You have to choose one and sit on it. But does that make sense on building rapport? And I want to come back to some of the comments here, and I'm going to scroll down. There's quite a few other things. We need to get to around about 6 topics there on what you can do. And I'm just jumping in here to check out whether you've got any questions. And I see here Queen Biza says, my weakness is lack of patience. Yeah, I hear you on that one, Queen Biza. But I almost want to come back to, if you don't have patience, where do you really need the patience? The patience is almost about building the relationship, right? And I'm telling you right now, if you're wanting to be winning more and more in real estate or in the property space, you need to be learning how to build the relationships, because property is just brick and mortar. It can go either way to whoever who has the best relationship. So your patience, I think it needs to be more around people that you surround yourself with, people that you have a relationship with. That way, when the deal is coming through to you, the people that you have a relationship with, they know already your criteria, they know what you're looking for, they know how much you can afford, and the deal, when it comes through, it is bagged, it is ripe. And the patience that you're saying that you're suffering from, that you don't have, when the property comes through to you in the right space, boom, all you're doing is signing on the dotted lines, and you're continuing with the process. All right. I hope that has helped you there, Queen Biza. I am just going to go on to another one here. Ayanda says, I find it difficult to negotiate with the estate agent. Yes, that's also another difficult one there. So negotiating with an estate agent generally is, it's not a lot of estate agents that are going to be taking what you are offering. But we need to bring it back a little bit. Estate agents, they are not there to work for you. Who are they working for? In 9 out of 10 situations, estate agents are working for the seller. Not unless you start to becoming a regular buyer, and then you start telling your estate agent what you are looking for. And with what you're looking for, then they kind of like start working for you, in the sense that they are going out there to look for opportunities for you. But in that case, you need to be having buying power, buying all the time. And obviously from that relationship, the table starts turning now, because they're going out to look for opportunities for you. and they know your criteria as well. Right. Is it difficult then to negotiate with the estate agent? Not necessarily so. It's about having the estate agent understand your requirement, understanding what is it that you are looking for. If they understand what you're looking for, your capacity, and you also find the right estate agent, because not all estate agents are good for you. So for instance, I'll give you an example. I was working with an estate agent at a particular time, and she was new, fresh. She was just trained to sell, sell, sell. And I was like, hold on. I'm trying to make a deal here. And if you're just trying to sell, it's not what I'm looking for. Let's make this deal to work. But because all she wanted to do was to sell, 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 she was failing to see what I was trying to do, which was to make a deal. So people that make deals who are estate agents, I like to work with those. But it's also difficult for you to find them, but it's also easy to work with them when you find them. Does that make sense? I'm hoping that it makes sense there to Ayanda. I'm going to jump onto the second one. So I said building rapport, right? I said building rapport. And I want to jump onto the second one. The second one is that it's almost very similar to building rapport, but it's slightly different in the manner that you need to be engaging, right? And this is very important. Engage in a conversation. And I want to give you guys an example of what it means to engage in a conversation. Back in the days, I think it's almost like a year and a half, we bought a property out in an area called Boksburg, Queen Biza, that's in your area there. I think I'm forgetting the street name that we bought it in, but it's one of the, I think it's called Leocorp or something like that. And on that street, what basically happened was that there was a house, and this house has been turned into a business. Now I'm talking about, I want to give an illustration of engaging in a conversation. So it's different from building rapport. Building rapport is that, hey, how's it going? Let me engage with you. And then you start engaging, right? So engaging in a conversation means that you are connected with the person and you are engaged, right? So what does that mean? I'll give you an example. This property in Boksburg, we bought the property and the property was on the market for around about 800,000-900,000. And it was a pretty rundown house. And out of that, I saw that on the internet, it had grass almost like a meter and a half. And it was right in the middle of the street. And I went to see the property for the first time with an estate agent that I didn't know. And obviously, I wanted to build my rapport with the estate agent. So I asked for the estate agent to meet with them round about 5 to 10 minutes before the actual meeting, because I wanted to build my rapport with the estate agent. Well, as it happened, we actually arrived at the place 10 minutes before. So we actually engaged in a conversation. And she was asking me, who do I work for? Where am I coming from? What do I do? And I was telling her what I do. However, when the owner of the house, the seller, pitched up, I realized that the seller, he was actually walking very slowly, you know. And then at looking at him more as he came a little bit closer to where we were, which was on the property, I realized that he had some form of a bypass, you know. He had this thingy that he was walking with, and he had a little bit of a bag, and I could see that there was a medical problem, okay? And I built my rapport with him, and he was an elderly guy. So obviously with an elderly person, you speak a little bit slow so that they can understand you, and you wait for them to respond. And out of that, he opened, he was trying to open the gate for us. And I sort of like offered for assistance to open the gate, and he gave me the keys. It was a whole big bunch of keys like these ones. So you see, I'm building rapport there. I'm giving him the power, and I'm asking him, so which keys is it? And he's showing me which keys, and eventually I unlocked the 15 keys that were there, and And out of that, I was able to open the gate. Before I went into the property, I then asked him the question whether he was fine. Could I get you some water or something like that? Because I could see that, he's running out of breath and things like that, and he's not well. So I engaged him at a level where he was. So I'm speaking slowly, I am talking to him, and I'm asking him now, is he fine? And I'm giving him the comfort. And I started having the conversation, obviously asking whether he was fine standing there for the time that we were going to be duration, because I could see the state that he's not well. And I offered some help. Can I, hold your hand whilst we're going in? And there I was showing a bit of empathy whilst we were actually walking. And with that, I opened up the conversation. What is wrong with him? And what is the bypass for? So I engaged him, and he started telling me what was wrong with him. Now, I want you to pay attention to why I was doing that. And this is where the magic of negotiation happens. As I engaged with him, he opened up to me and he started telling me all the problems that he had. So I engaged with him, and it was just a conversation. And I want to jump on into point 3. And point 3 is that you need to have real empathy. There is no such thing as, just empathy and real empathy. But I want to emphasize on empathy. You need to have empathy on people's problems. Okay? Once you have empathy on people's problems, or definitely all of the houses that you're going to go to, it's not people that are with, like in this case with this guy. But remember, I mentioned that the house was on the market for 850. And as I engaged with the guy in the conversation, I actually realized that he was selling the house in the conversation that we had because he wanted money for an operation. And out of that, I then realized that, there is the problem, right? The problem is not that he wants to sell this house. No, he didn't want to sell the house. He has had this house for the longest time. It was paid up. He had been running his office on that property for the longest time. But the problem here was that he needed to seek medical attention. So in my conversation, I extracted enough information for myself to actually be able to know maybe how much I could offer him to solve the problem of his medical issue. Anyways, what I then did is that obviously after seeing the property, I went through and I called one of my doctor friends and I said, hey, buddy, I met up with this guy and I think he needs an operation and ABCD. What do you think if this guy goes out into the private sector? How much would he need for an operation? And if he goes into the public, how much would he need? Well, he told me what it was, and I came back and I topped it up with round about 50,000 Rand, and I came back and I offered round about 350, 250 was my first offer on that property, and Madala said no. However, I then came back and I said to Madala, can I offer you 350,000, but I know that it's going to take us a bit of time to register. I am happy to give you the 350 now, but we can do an installment sale on the property. And for some of you that don't know an installment sale, in M5 Property Varsity, we actually have a course that is called the installment sale that you can literally buy for as little as 600 Rand, and you can educate yourself on how to do installment sales. Now, whilst I am doing that, he then said yes. But on the other side, I went to my estate agent, right? And how did I do that? I didn't put in an offer directly to the estate agent. I asked my estate agent whether we could go and see the property again. And at that time, I then told my estate agent that I am going to put in a verbal offer and I am going to do it, but I want to check something on the property. So my estate agent pitched up together with my seller, and at that time I gave in my offer of 250. But I indicated to my estate agent that, look, I understand the property is run down, and for whatever it's going to be selling, I don't think that you're going to get good commission, right? Whatever commission that is going to come out of this place here, I might as well maybe just double it up for you to get something tangible on it. And my estate agent said, yes, that would make sense. And I would put it in the offer to purchase. And that was great. So for when we offered the 350, eventually, we actually just bought the property for 350 flat. And we paid 250, and that 250 was money that we paid upfront. And what happened to Madala? I was able to solve the problem that was there, which was a medical problem. He actually needed about 180,000 to solve his problem. Okay. So I want to go into point number 4. So point number 4 is you need to have the ability to solve problems. You need to have the ability to solve problems. Yes, point number 2 is that you need to engage into a conversation, right? And out of that, you need to be having some empathy. So that there is a problem now, and you're identifying it, but you need to show some empathy. But now that you have identified the problem that you're empathizing on, how do you solve for that problem? If I didn't know if Dr. Friend, how else would I have known the cost of solving the medical problem? So that's what I now need to do. And it draws me now into point number 5. And point number 5 is you need to know how to research. So in this scenario of this house in Boksburg, I was able to go out and research from a medical perspective, how much is this going to cost me if Madala was going to go into an operation. And the other research that I also did was on the actual property. Had I bought it for 350, how much could I sell it for if I was going to sell it? And if I had put in 350, how much do I need to actually have on the property to renovate it? So that's all part of your research, your due diligence, as we call it. And I'm labeling this research because it may be under the due diligence and research is kind of like the same thing. But the reason why I'm saying research is that I also want to cover the component of, when we say in due diligence, it might only just cover the property aspect. But I want you to again think of other aspects that you're seeing that you have found as and when you are engaging with this individual. And then the other comment, the other statement that I want to say here is that you need to have alternative options, right? You need to have alternative options. What do I mean by this? When I put in an offer of the 250 in the first place, because it was solving the Madala's problem, I knew that he was going to say no. But my alternative was that if I give him the 350, but give him the 250 cash, he was going to buy it. But it wasn't going to allow me to actually buy the entire house. So I said to him, 250 cash, but I'm now left with 100,000. When do I pay the other 100? And I delayed that, and I put it in on an installment sale for the 100,000. But I then asked to move in. Now, I want to give you guys a little bit of extra information on this particular deal. On this particular deal, this house was full of furniture, office furniture. In this house, there was a lot of rubbish in it. In this house, you can think of anything and everything. It was just left in there. So it was a functioning office that they had, and maybe about 10 to 15 years ago, they just left it. And at the back, they had tried to do some renovation, and they just left everything there. Now, here is some of the other things that you can do now to sweeten the negotiation. I could see that Madala was sick. I could see that if I had said to him, he actually needs to take in everything out of this property, it's going to be problematic for him. So I said in my offer to purchase, they don't need to worry about taking the rubbish out. I will clear the rubbish out. Was it really rubbish? No, really. In the house was some form of furniture in it, but a lot of it was rubbish. But on the other hand, Madala hadn't been in this office for like a long time. And he did say to me, yes, that's fine. Guess what happened? I went in there with my boys, we cleared it out, and I actually sold off some of the property. Some of the furniture in there, and I got a handsome 30 grand from selling off some of that furniture. If ever you have an opportunity to visit me at my office, where we have an office in Florida, you will actually be able to see a desk, which was a 1915 desk, oak, right? And I bought it. Actually, I didn't buy it. I salvaged it from this property. And it's a desk that I now have, and I never even paid a dime for it. It is there in my office. I utilize it every day. But how did I get that desk? I solved the problem where Madala was going to be thinking that it was going to be very difficult for him to take all of this rubbish out. And I said, not to worry, we are going to clear it out for you, right? And that was part of the negotiations. I offered to help, and he agreed. Does that make sense? I think it makes sense. If you got any form of comments or questions around this, jot them down there whilst we are going ahead. But I then want us to kind of like jump into something else where in the form of when I was talking about alternative options, what do I mean by that? Right. Alternative options just basically means that I had the option on the property to buy it cash. But instead, I only paid $250,000 because that was going to solve his problem, but that was going to give me access into the property. If I had $350,000 cash, and that's all the money that I had, it means that had I paid the entire $350,000, it means that I wasn't able actually then to have money for closing fees, money for renovations, and all of those things. But what did I do? I held back on my $100,000, and I asked for a delayed sale, and I gave him the $250,000, and I had $100,000 now to go in and start doing my renovation on the property. I bought that property with the intention of selling it as a flip, and yes, I eventually spent in another $200,000 on that property, and I sold it for $890,000. You do the maths in terms of how much I ended up making. And that was the days that I didn't know how to finance properties after I've done a reno. With what I know now, I would have never sold it because I don't sell anything these days. I keep everything, right? I keep everything. But I'm going to open up for questions now. I can see there's some questions that have come up. And yeah, let's jump on to some of those questions. If there is any questions on negotiating or anything actually around real estate, just property, just jot them down there for me, and I can answer those questions out for you. Right. Whilst I am talking, there's something else that I also want to kind of like talk about here, and that is around the whole concept of negotiating. For me, negotiating is about finding a win-win solution for everyone involved in the deal, right? And the second part is negotiating is not about knocking someone off their price. That for me, that's not negotiating. In this scenario that I've just shared with you guys, the real problem was not about selling the house. The real problem was this guy needed some health attention now, right? And it literally took him about a week, and he was in hospital, and he came out, I think, about 2 months later. And in the whole process, I'd been able to actually to sort out all the problems that were there on that property. So two things. Negotiating is about finding a win-win solution, right? And that's why the meaning of negotiation is a dialogue between two or more people intended to reach a beneficial outcome over an issue, right? It makes sense, isn't it? Okay. And then the last thing that I would then want to speak about from my notes before I jump onto your comments and your questions there is that, and this is a tip, it's actually a tip that I want to give out. It is important that we learn how to negotiate. It's a skill that you can harness, right? And this skill here, if you don't practice it, when you get into a deal, you get scared. When you're now putting in an offer, you get scared. You're not so sure, what should you be doing? But if you follow that process of, building a rapport, then you engage in the conversations, right? And you actually have empathy on some of the problems that they generally have. There's always a problem. Negotiating is about actually unearthing those problems, and then you can start solving them. When you solve the problem, that's where the money is. Yeah? Does that make sense? Okay, cool. Now, the tip that I want to give you guys is that at any given time, find an opportunity of negotiating. So in other words, all I'm saying is negotiate everything or always negotiating, right? If you go to the shops and they are selling bread at 20 Rand, 15 Rand, I don't know how much bread is these days, just try to negotiate and see whether you can get it for 10 Rand. Bread could be extreme, but all I'm just saying here is that always be negotiating, because once you get into the mode of negotiating, it becomes very, very easy for you to negotiate on the real stuff. Okay? And negotiating doesn't generally mean on pricing alone. It might also mean on just having your way. So negotiate, right? Hey, we want to go through this way. We want to turn left here. Oh, maybe let's turn right and let's go into a merry-go-round, and then we'll get to the left. You've just negotiated. Why are we going that way? Oh, it's just about we can go and see the birds that way. So you've just negotiated, right? So always practice negotiating. I want to come into the comments here, and there's a comment here. Someone is saying, when you do your due diligence, how do you go about getting the info on the house, except the obvious like property prices around the area, current value on the property, etc.? Okay, good question there. And I want to speak to a point where, not to a point, but actually on, just putting my notes away there. And Ayanda, there's actually a video that Rita did at one point, and that video is about when you jump on Property 24, right? And I'm speaking here to Property 24 in particular, and then I'm going to go into other ways of how you can do it. When you go on Property 24 and then you put the address of the place, the actual address of the place, what typically happens is that it will, at the bottom there, it will start telling you that, or it will ask you or it will give you last sold, right? So last sold, it won't be that particular property alone. It will actually be maybe a number of properties. I think they normally show like 4 or 5, and all of those properties could be in the same street or within the area. Okay, and on that video, it actually then you can actually show, you can actually see that, oh, this property here was actually bought for X. So you can now, that's part of your due diligence now. So that's the first one. The second one is that you can go into other tools like TPN, and TPN is www.tpn.coza. You can go on to another one which is called Windit, www.windit.coza. Another one that I also like is Lightstone, www.lightstone.coza. And on there, some of these, actually all of them, they are almost subscription based. Or for as little as 20, 30 Rand, you can get a report on a particular property, right? So you go in there, and out of it, you can look for the property that you're looking for. You put in the address, and boom, the report will come up. You buy it, and from there, you can actually, it suggests to you what is the value of that property. It's called a comparable price. You'll be able to see it, and on top of that, you can be able actually to see anything and everything that is selling within that area, and that what becomes part of your due diligence. All right, and it mustn't end there actually. So what are you buying the property for? Are you buying the property for the purposes of, you want to buy it and sell it, which I don't do. I don't advocate for people to do that, because I'm of the view that it doesn't get you to be rich, man. Like you like selling tomatoes. You're a wholesaler. You buy, you sell, you make profit. I want you to be rich in equity, in assets, and that's how people get rich, right? And so once you get the depending on why you are buying or that property, if it is for the purposes of renting, then I suggest that your TPN is the good report that you want to jump into. Why? Because it's got this other report that is called an investor pack. And the investor pack kind of like tells you exactly the neighborhood, rental in that neighborhood, to a bed, 1 bed, a 2 bed, a house, all of those things. And part of your due diligence now, you can start actually looking out for all of these things. Over and above that, I would suggest that if you've never done any property investment at all, my suggestion to you is that jump on to M5 Property Varsity, and you can get, right? You can get, actually you can get 30 days for free right now. And you can jump onto a course called Property Fundamentals. And I think you can buy it for like 600, I think. Yeah, 600. And out of it, you can do it that course. It's about a 10-hour course. And from there, it can teach you how to do due diligence, like proper due diligence, right? And out of that, you can learn how to do it. And you can get other tools like we did speak about, like the installment sale and things like that. Okay. I'm hoping that has been of value to you. And I am going to answer another question. Right. And Lindo Kutle, they're from watching us from Durban. High five to you, man. Welcome. Right. I'm going to jump onto another comment here. Ayanda says that this video came at the right time. I almost gave up on a deal I viewed last week. I just realized now that the agent didn't want a lower offer because he needs to make money. Yeah, awesome. Right. So Ayanda, what you can do there is, you need to look at. So here's the thing, right? Especially when you're working with an estate agent, right? If your offer is too low, the reality is that you are taking away their commission. It doesn't make sense. You're taking away their commission. So it's just the same with doing like an installment sale. An installment sale in general doesn't allow you to pay out the estate agent. But for me, I like to pay them up front. So with an estate agent, you can work out the fee there. Had the property sold at 900,000, what would be their commission? And can you pay them from their side? Is the deal still making sense? And it's a conversation that you need to have with your estate agent. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, And there's so many ways to skin the cat. You just need to be thinking out and looking out for the relationship that you have with your estate agent. So high five to you and good luck there. Another question that I want to address here, someone says, example, there's a house in my street, the Mandala, yeah. I get you there, Queen Biza. Yeah. Example, there's a house in my street. The Mandala has passed away currently. It's empty. and I can't seem to find who do I talk to. So, okay, right. This is a good deal. It's a good deal. Yeah, well spotted for the fact that there was someone there. So it's now a deceased estate. That's what it is. Right. The first thing that you need to be doing there is you need to jump onto Lightstone. But now the problem is that the Lightstone is going to go to the Madala because he's the owner, right? Okay, but it also gives you an opportunity to know who the Madala's name and surname is. These days, it is pretty simple, guys, to find out, the details of these people and things like that, because the world is now almost very small. Let's assume, right? Let's assume the Madala is late now. I mean, he is late now. What can you do now? You go onto Lightstone and you find out the Madala's name is Taurai Jack, like me, right? But this time around, because it's a deceased estate, you are going to find my cell phone number, right? The likelihood of my cell phone number being with my child is very high at the moment. So if you call the number, it might go to the child. That's option number one, or anyone else who is related to this person. If there's a voicemail, okay, great, no problem. But you can also go on social media, right? Hopefully Madala was on social media. And you can either start tracing the name, right? So you go into social media, type in Taurai Jack, and if you see me on it, if I'm the Madala, then obviously you're going to see a whole trail of rest in peace. Right? People do that. They go into, if I'm the one who's late, they're going to go into my wall and then they're going to write on peace. Like I'm going to see it. Like I'm dead already, right? But that's also a starting point for you to be able to find. So obviously they will say condolence, John. Oh, we are very sorry, Susan. So who are they referring to in all these condolences? And the point is that whoever that they're referring to is potentially the close person. So if a property becomes a deceased estate, which means that there's lawyers involved. So by the time you are going to call a Susan or the Jane who is being referred to, probably is the surviving person. If the phone didn't work, you call that Taurai's phone. This time round, you call that person or you inbox them. Hey, I'm very sorry. My condolence on Taurai Jack. But I actually stay in the area, and I don't know whether the property is going to be sold. I think now it's in a deceased estate. I'll be very keen to buy the property if it's being sold. You have just said condolence, straight to the point. Can I buy the house? Who can I speak to? Who is the executor? And with that information, if they're selling it, then boom, you know who the executor is, and now you can go and engage. And in general, deceased estates, they just want to get rid of the assets so that they can pay off the debts. So you might be onto something there. So high five to you. Right. The other question that's coming through. All right, I'm going into the other question here. Right. What will be the best purchase price to negotiate? Oh, is there a best price? Let's get through to all the questions. Do I take the current value of the property or do I look at what the seller has paid? Okay, that's a good question. Right, when I am negotiating, right, it is about me. It's never about what the seller paid for. It's never about what is the current value of the property, but I want to stick on to the current value because that it's a lever in my calculations. So current value matters, right? What they paid for, it's got nothing to do with me. I don't know. Maybe it wasn't their money, right? Or maybe they won lotto, so maybe they don't care about how much they're putting in that property. Who knows? Okay. Now, the best price for me is, why am I buying the property? Is it for rental purposes? Okay. If it's for rental purposes, if I put in, they are asking for 1 million, but I can only extract 20,000 on this property. So if I'm extracting 20,000 on this property, and if I add in, do I need to renovate the property? No. And if I take a bond on this property, what will be my bond? 10,000 at 10%, but we know that, at the moment you could potentially be paying maybe about 7 or 8,000. Okay, so let's take 8,000. So 8,000 is my repayment, and out of that you do have insurance and management fees and all those other things. So potentially you're all in for all costs on this property now, maybe let's say 14,000. Okay, so you're all in on 14,000, but you're banking 20 grand on it. And the question is that, what will be the best value? If the property is on the market for 1 million, I'm going to buy it for 1 million. There's no negotiation there. 1 million, boom, because I'm still making money. But can I still negotiate as well? Yeah, I can negotiate. Maybe at 900,000. So the whole driving factor here is the value of the property. You don't want to overpay, because you generally want to make money when you are buying a property. That's the first thing. And the second rule is that whatever cost you're going to be putting in, for me, I'm always happy if we buy a property and we leave zero money in the deal. My team and I, we get excited when that happens, because we know that money is really working hard for us. Or the value of the property versus the money I've left in the deal, I am getting double in terms of return on investment. What is the return of investment? The money that I've left in the deal, right? What interest is it giving back to me? So if it is giving me double what the bank might be giving me, or triple that, we're making good money. That means my money is really working hard for me. And that's the theory around it. Okay, then the other point here, I hope that makes sense for you. Nare Maloto, other questions there? Other questions? Is this live or pre-recorded? I'm live, buddy. I am live. I am here. Woohoo! Okay, cool. Right, what's the other one there? Another question that I can jump on. Okay. Okay, there is no any other questions actually to answer. Yeah, I see that Rita is online and she's been defending some of the questions there. Well done. Thank you very much for being a co-host in silence. Yeah, and that's good. Anyways, we are going to be doing this every Saturday going into the future at this time. So you better need to bring in all of your comments and questions, and we get to learn whilst we are talking to you. And I am wrapping up now, but I want to stress out the fact that as we go along with these topics, let us know which topics you also want to discuss, so that we can discuss stuff that you want to hear. Stuff that you're struggling with. Remember, this is not just about me. It is about me, yes, and it is also about you. So as I close, thanks very much for watching us. And if you haven't subscribed, this is the time that you need to subscribe. And thank you for some of you who've been good sportsmen and asking the questions. Well done to you. And I'm hoping that this information has been of value to you. And good night and have a good weekend. Cheers. Bye.